When you hear the word preppy, what comes to mind? For me, I personally think of Gilmore Girls, Gossip Girl, anything centered around a preparatory or prep school or private school. I think of plaids, blazers, pleated skirts, A-line skirts, ties, bow ties, knee-high or thigh-high socks, but lately,
Where the rats?
Although one of those TikToks was clearly a joke, this rebrand of what is preppy is not. Preppy has been redefined in a way that is completely unrecognizable than the original preppy that we think of. Now for me, this reminds me more of like 2014 Tumblr, like a very specific brand of 2014 Tumblr. But it is most definitely not the academia, prep, Gilmore Girls, Gossip Girl aesthetic that we think of when we think of preppy. Now clearly, quote-unquote girly colors like pink or some sort of pastels can in fact also be a part of the original preppy that we think of. Brands like Ralph Lauren have been making pastel colored sweaters forever now. And brands like Abercrombie or Brandy Melville have also incorporated pastel colors into their aesthetic. So I'm not saying pastel equals not preppy. What I'm saying is that it feels more reminiscent of the whole Visco girl thing, the aesthetic that was based off of the photo editing app from a few years ago. It incorporates a whole lot of pastels and neon colors and vaguely retro aesthetics as well. And while I do think we need to stop being so focused on labels, I also think it's a bit absurd to try to redefine something that it has already been so prominent within our media for decades. Preppy, as long as I could remember, has been in reference to prep, preparatory, a prep school, a private school, an aesthetic of academic opulence. Arguably also rooted in Eurocentrism and all these other things that people may find problematic. However, the reality is this aesthetic is based off of private preparatory schools, which is why the aesthetic is very specific when it comes to trying to emulate academic aesthetics. At this point in the game, we've also seen people of various intersectional identities put on this aesthetic as well, so there's no need to feel as if you are inherently excluded after all of the media that we've had showing that you don't have to be. So it's a little difficult to argue that this is a case of people trying to bring inclusion, especially because this rebrand of prep still often focuses on cishet white girls as the primary focus. That's not to say that other people don't also participate in this rebrand of prep, but you know what I mean. I honestly believe that this has something to do with the fact that a lot of people often don't actually want to engage in the things that they claim to like or learn anything about the things that they claim to like. I also think the main culprit in this situation is that people mistook being prep or preppy as simply being popular. And so people who don't know what the word preppy means took that to mean whatever the popular girls were wearing at school is what preppy is. It doesn't help that in a lot of mainstream media, whenever they refer to the preps or the preppies, They were talking about the popular kids at school. However, the popular kids at school also typically had an aesthetic that was related to the current one you're seeing on screen. The times in media to which they didn't, it was usually because the term was being misused. I truly think that's where a lot of the confusion when it comes to defining this aesthetic comes from. We see in a lot of older film the unpopular kids rolling their eyes and talking about the preppies. You pan the camera over and it's the popular kids. And again, while I am sick of the heavy label culture and everyone just saying insert word here core every 5 seconds, I do think it's important to acknowledge that words do have meaning. I don't think true preppy aesthetic has died. If anything, it's probably one of the most popular aesthetics currently. With Brandy Melville, Old Abercrombie, Old Hollister, and even a lot of archival Japanese brands like Liz Lisa being dominant in hyper-feminine spaces at this moment of time. And not even just hyper-feminine spaces, but in quote-unquote feminine spaces, period. It's just been relabeled as clean girl, old money, dark academia, light academia. It's just this constant fight of renaming things, misusing names. I think the internet exacerbates this phenomenon quite a bit because people are looking for hashtags in order to belong or in order to create a niche to become popular. I honestly believe that people should just focus on wearing whatever style that they want without having to worry about the label, and I also think people need to learn what words mean at the same time. Let's do both. For me personally, the aesthetics you've seen throughout this video will always be what preppy actually is to me.